Good morning. Welcome to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City's virtual hearing. Today is October 1st, 2020, 11 a.m. The board will be hearing violation cases. I will just quickly go through the outline of the packet and the hearings that the board will have before them today. If you want to access these hearings, we have a link listed on this webpage online. This link can also be found on our website. There's an access code and a password. If you have a computer or a smartphone, you can use this link to log on and view the hearings via your phone or computer. If you do not have access to a smartphone and just a landline, you can call in the number below, and there is an access code that you can use to listen into the hearings. The materials, copies of the short docket, which provide a brief description of the cases before the board, and long docket, which include all application materials, can be found under a hyperlink October 1st, 2020 on our docket. There's a 48-hour evidence rule for online hearings. All the evidence to be considered by the board can be found on the long docket. The board will be accepting evidence from any party to the hearing up until 11 a.m. on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. Related notes, licensees should make all efforts to provide any documentation that they plan on submitting to the board by 11 a.m. on Tuesday, September 29th, 2020. Attempts to introduce evidence at hearings that were not submitted prior to the hearing may lead to a postponement in your case. Clicking on to the next slide. After I read the preliminary instructions and call the cases, I will impanel all of the witnesses, licensees, and their representatives. At that time, you're going to be sworn in. If you're going to be giving testimony, you'll have to turn on your audio and video of your phone. After the hearing is held, the board will ask questions of the licensee and or his or her representatives and any other fact witness. After that, the board may ask if there are any members of the public that wish to give testimony to then signify they're going to give testimony by using the raise your hand function, and I will then impanel you and you can provide testimony. After the board hears all the testimony, it will make its determination and then sentence. Just some general ground rules and helpful information for this hearing. If you're going to be giving testimony, please identify yourself and state the spelling of your name before you speak. We have a court reporter who is online too. She will be making a transcript of all this, so we need to know exactly who is saying what. Speak slowly and in a clear voice. Note that this event is running live on Charm TV. Individuals who use profanity, are disrespectful, or unruly may be expelled from the hearing. Just some helpful reminders. Try to be in a well-lighted area so that the board and members can see you when you're providing testimony, and be in a place with a strong signal. That way there's no skipping, and in a silent location too. A lot of background noise can affect what the commissioners hear. So it's just important to be in a quiet place. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to be calling the first case.
Okay, let's go.
Barry Clark, Alex Perez, and Olivia Thomas, Poppy and Company, LLC, trading as Poppy's Cuisine, 1928 Fleet Street. There's a Class B Beer One liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.08A, Relations with Wholesalers on March 11, 2020, and a violation of Alcoholic Beverages Article 6311B1, possession of alcohol purchased from other than a wholesaler on March 11, 2020. I'm going to bring all the witnesses in now. I have attorney Mr. Fogelman, Mr. Perez. I have agents Burley and agents Southworth that I brought in. Will everybody please turn on their cameras and their audio so Madam Court Reporter can swear you in.
Figure it out.
Waiting to see Mr. Burley or Agent Burley and the other agent.
Agent Southworth has his video on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got Mr. Southworth. Just waiting for Agent Burley for his video.
Agent Burley, can you please turn on your video, sir?
I'm attempting to.
Okay.
You done yet? You doing settings?
Okay. Now we turn our videos. Just about.
If we can't get Agent Burley, let's proceed, okay?
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury? And please state your name before your response.
Did any of the witnesses hear that?
No.
Okay. Could you hear? Okay. Please raise your right hand. Please raise your right hand, Mr. Perez.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thanks. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
Yes, I did.
And state your name before your response.
Alex Perez, it's ALEX PEREZ, and yes, I swear to tell the truth.
Hey, Mr. Southworth.
Alan Southworth, ALAN. ULPH.
Okay, I just didn't hear the response. I just need the response.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Fogelman, will you identify yourself for the record, please?
So,
Yes, thank you very much, Your Honor. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of licensee. I'm joined by Alex Perez, licensee.
Okay. Are these going to be admissions or denials, Mr. Fogelman?
I'm sorry, the
I
court
didn't
reporter.
get, oh yeah, sorry. Sorry to interrupt. I just didn't get Mr. Burley's response.
Oh, I didn't know he was here.
Yeah.
You want to repeat that?
Oh, sure. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Fogelman, are we going to have admissions or denials?
Denials. I'm sorry, admissions. Serious, submission.
Okay. So do you want to tell us what happened on March 11th?
Sure, thank you very much, Your Honor.
Patrick.
On March 11th, you might see in the file there that the restaurant had only been open for 6 weeks. Mr. Perez and Mr. Clark had a friend that had some excellent experience doing special events, private events with DC in Washington. Unfortunately, he'd never had any restaurant experience, and he ran low on certain alcoholic ingredients on that the night before, I believe. And they did the bar manager, made purchases at a local liquor store. The bar manager didn't come to the management about the request, about the purchase, and the applicant and licensees, they knew you're not supposed to purchase alcohol from a liquor store. They thought about firing him, but because he's a good barman, they decided that it's better that he learn a lesson from this, and he certainly has, and it's never going to happen again. It's just happened to be just a regrettable incident, and they wish that he had come to them first.
And what is his name?
I don't have his name in front of me, or I would have given it to you. Mr. Perez. I just call Mr. Perez, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Mr. Perez.
Yeah, so our bar manager name is Kenneth McCaskill. As Steve has stated, you don't pretty much specialize in events dealing with politicians and private parties and things of that nature. He did go to school for his bartending license and so forth, but I guess working in the restaurant atmosphere is definitely, this is a first for his resume.
Okay, so he was unaware of the rule.
Yes, pretty much.
Did the inspectors have any problems with the licensees in dealing with this issue?
No, sir.
They were cooperative?
They were very cooperative.
All right, do the commissioners have questions?
I do apologize, guys. I'm in my penthouse and they just decided to start banging on something below, the floor below me at 11 o'clock. So I do apologize about that.
Commissioner Guy, I have no questions on this.
Mr. Chairman, I have no questions.
Okay, Ms. Fogelman, is there anything further?
Yeah, briefly, boy, did they pick a heck of a year to open a small business. Nevertheless, they definitely learned from the incident of March 11. It happened on March 11, and who knew what life was going to bring just a few days later. So while they've struggled, they've built some inroads with a lot of local customers. I just ask that it be a low fine, given the fact that, and obviously this factors in that, the alcoholic beverages are always confiscated. What happens to them after that, I never know, but I never saw one when I was there. So anyway, I just ask that you consider a very small fine.
Have they worked out an arrangement with appropriate wholesalers now for their inventory?
Absolutely. And they already had relationships. It was just a matter of somebody was out of certain ingredients in a pinch and decided to make this purchase without realizing that it was against state law.
Okay. All right, thank you. The basis and the materials contained in the charging documents, the proffer from counsel and the admission of the violations, as well as the testimony received. I find a violation of Rule 4.08 small a on March 11, 2020, and a violation of alcoholic beverage article section 6311 small b small 1, also on March 11, 2020, with respect to the
Show matters.
someone who's speaking. Okay. With respect to the purchase of the alcohol from a retailer rather than from the wholesalers who are approved. I hear Mr. Fogelman. I understand this was hopefully a one and done error on their part. And in light of those facts, that they were new to this and that we're in the midst of a very difficult time for restaurateurs, I would impose a $100 fine as to each of the violations and give them 30 days to pay. Commissioners?
Commissioner Guy, in consideration of the testimony and evidence presented to the board in this case, I also found that the licensee is in violation of Rule 4.08A, relations with wholesaler, and violation of alcohol beverage Article 6-311B. 1, possession of alcohol purchased from other than a wholesaler, which took place on March 11th, 2020. I find you in violation, and I concur with the fine of $100 each for each offense, payable in 30 days.
Based upon the charging documents, the testimonies, and the proffer, I too find a violation of Rule 4.08A on March 11, 2020. Will concur with the imposition of a $100 fine. Also find a violation of the alcoholic beverage Article 6-311 small b1 on March 11, 2020, and would also concur with the imposition of a $100 fine.
Thank you all.
I call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, State Comptroller Incident Report. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Fogelman, you will be receiving the board's decision and next steps for payment via mail.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Okay. Inspector Agent Southworth, I believe that's the only case you have in this docket, so you're free to leave. Inspector Burley, I'm going to need you for the next couple cases, so please stand by, okay?
I have one more, sir.
All right. Calling the second case, Gabriela Salas, Charo Negro, Trading LLC. Trading is Charo Negro, 4617 through 19 Eastern Avenue. Is a Class B beer wine liquor license. A violation of Rule 4.08A, Relations with Wholesalers, on February 12, 2020. And a violation of Alcoholic Beverages Article 6-311B1, possession of alcohol purchased from other than a wholesaler, on February 12, 2020. I'm going to be paneling all of those witnesses now.
I'm still on there.
Tom, we're getting a lot of feedback. I don't know what it's from.
Let me just, there may be a couple people that are unmuting, so I'm muting them now. Bringing all the witnesses in as we speak. And Mr. Hurdle will be representing them.
Is he online?
He is. I brought him on and made him a panelist.
Okay. Mr. Hurdle, you want to identify yourself for the record, please?
Yes, Abraham Hurdle on behalf of Charo Negro.
And all the agents are coming in right now.
I'd like to sequester all of the agents while I make my motion for dismissal.
I believe that is everyone. I have Inspector Southworth, and Agent Herndon, Agent Burley, Agent Cusimano, Agent Mangold. Should be all online. I ask that you turn on your video and your audio.
Mr. Akers, I don't know who's on here and who's not. I asked Mr. Hurdle to identify himself, but I can't hear him at all.
Abraham Hurdle on behalf of Charo Negro.
Okay, speak more.
Say so, but I can't get the picture to go right.
All right, now we'll have the reporter swear everyone, and then we will turn off the inspectors so that you can make your motion.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And Mr. Hurdle, are there witnesses there with you that need to be
Yes,
sworn?
with me is Miss Gabrielle Salas.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Great. Okay. Please raise your right hand. Can you hear me? Oh, I can't see Miss Mangold.
I'm having problems getting my picture up.
On the bottom, does it say start video?
Let's start video. Wait a minute. Come on.
Oh, and who is the other person with you, Mr. Hurdle? I have Miss Salas.
Mr. Garcia. Jesus
Okay.
Garcia.
Okay, thank you. Do you want me to go ahead, or do you want me to wait for the video? Oh, there's Miss Mangold, I think, is starting to come in.
For some reason, my video is facing in the wrong direction.
Oh, you gotta click the image.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. right here. Myself. US.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. Please raise your right hands. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God, or under penalty of perjury? And please state your name before your response.
Michelle Mangold, I do.
Agent Jeff Herndon, I do.
Agent Mike Cusimano, I do.
Agent Tom Burke, I do.
Kevin Burley, I do.
Inspector Alan Southworth, I do.
Mr. Garcia, I do.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we have everyone. So, Mr. Akris, can you remove the inspectors from the panel for a moment, please?
Okay, I'll do that. It's going to take me a second, but I'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, I believe I've removed all of the agents from the panel right now.
All right, Mr. Hurdle, let's hear from you.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for dismissal. On Friday, I sent a letter to the board and agents of the comptroller requesting evidence that would be exculpatory and needed for me to present my case.
Can't hear you.
Clarify evidence. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
You're breaking up, but go ahead. Yes.
Friday, I sent a letter requesting evidence to both the liquor board and the comptroller. At that time, the evidence that I requested was detailed in nature, photos of the bottles requested, as well as any other exculpatory evidence, witnesses and so forth. I received nothing from the liquor board prior to yesterday afternoon. I did meet with the comptroller yesterday morning. They indicated that all the documents that I had in question had been turned to the liquor board previously. I also had an opportunity to inspect several bottles that were confiscated at the time. And this is significant because the liquor board rule requires that records are kept for a single year, and the state law requires that the rule records are kept for 2 years. And the booze in question is much, much older. Just having a list of what was taken does not provide that information. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or if that's an accident. But I will say that the comptroller's office was extraordinarily professional during my interactions with them, and I do very much appreciate those interactions. The documents that the liquor board made available to me yesterday, or were, I guess, available on the website but not given to me, had several pages that, when they were scanned or copied, were illegible. And I think that's an important set of documents that I needed. I also don't think that I should be required to drive myself to Annapolis to inspect evidence being presented against my client that's exculpatory in nature, so that we can defend ourselves in a fair and just manner. I think that it presents us with a difficult situation when the liquor board is both bringing the case, prosecuting the case, and the decider of evidence. I think it presents a question of balance and a question of bias in these situations. I'm required to present everything by the liquor board's own rules 2 days prior to today's hearing. Tuesday, 11 a.m., that's the cutoff. I didn't get documents before Tuesday, 11 a.m. As a result, exculpatory evidence from my client wasn't presented to me, and it's innocent until proven guilty and not the other way around. I'm also very concerned that the documents that were publicly sent out and available on the website were available to the commissioners so they could be inspected prior to the case, prior to objections, prior to these motions to dismiss, and that creates a significant bias in these cases. And at this time, again, I'd like to renew my motion to dismiss.
Okay. I'll deny your motion to dismiss. Now tell me, do you have the documents that you need to proceed, or are you asking for a continuance?
I'm not asking for a continuance. I timely requested it. The liquor board could have asked for a continuance prior to Tuesday under their own rules.
We're
I
not
have
asking
one
for a
photo.
continuance. I'm asking you if you're asking for a continuance.
I'm entitled to the evidence that I
about
requested.
not getting the documents in a timely fashion, so I'm asking you if you need more time.
If I may respond.
Yes.
I asked for the documents in a timely fashion. I think if the liquor board had contacted me prior to Tuesday at 11 a.m. regarding more time to get those documents, that it would have been very reasonable. And of course, I would have consented to that motion. Nobody reached out to me prior to yesterday. I'm not looking for the documents that are exculpatory for me. They need to be presented to me. There is a tax allegation, which could be a criminal violation. My client's entitled to all exculpatory evidence.
Well, since you're not going to respond to my question, we'll proceed. Is it an admission or a denial?
Denial.
Okay, so let's bring the inspectors back on. Mr. Akros, please.
Okay, just a moment, Mr. Chair. I'm bringing them all in now.
If I may, I'd like the witnesses sequestered so they testify one at a time if that's possible.
Well, I don't know who's first. Mr. Akros, do you know who's the lead inspector on the case?
For case number 2, I have Agent Michelle Mangold and Inspector Southworth as primaries on this.
Okay, well,
Particularly Mangold.
Let's take them one at a time. Bring in Inspector or Agent Mangold, please.
Okay, Agent Mangold is on, and I'm just going to pull all the other agents off. But please bear with me. I apologize. I just pulled them back in. Okay, Agent Mangold is the only representative of the Comptroller's office who's on now.
Okay.
And your audio is on, Agent Mangold.
Can you hear me, Agent Mangold? This is the chairman.
Yes, I can.
So on February 12, 2020, can you tell the board what you observed and what you did at 4617-19 Eastern Avenue?
Yes, sir. At about 11 o'clock in the morning, myself and other inspectors went to Trevor Negro, located at 4617 through 4619 Eastern Avenue in Baltimore. I spoke to Jesus Garcia. I identified myself as an agent, and I asked to see his trader's license and his alcohol license, his alcohol license, liquor license. He was able to provide me with both. I asked for the invoices for the alcohol. Mr. Garcia was able to give me some invoices, but the invoices didn't appear to cover what he had had. I had actually been there the day before, late afternoon, and they didn't. There was another female working, and she didn't really have any of the invoices. Wasn't really sure what was, what she did have. So I came back the following day, and because I didn't have any real invoices to look at the day before, I brought some other people with me just in case I needed to confiscate anything. So when I got there on the 12th, I spoke with the owner. I advised him, I needed to see the receipts for the alcohol. He brought down receipts. We went through the alcohol with the receipts and with the other agents, and we literally removed alcohol and put it back on the shelves as we had receipts for them. Once we were finished, and once Mr. Garcia had no more receipts to show. What was left were 135 bottles of alcoholic beverages that didn't have receipts. Those bottles were confiscated. Mr. Garcia did explain to me that the wine that was above the shelves, that was sitting on its own shelf, that he had gotten that from the other owner. It was a previous owner. I did ask for the bulk transfer, and he did not have one. He said he didn't have one. But we did spend a significant amount of time just trying to exhaust all the receipts and invoices that he had. He kept going back upstairs and finding more. And as he brought them down, we went through them, and anything that was new that we could take off and put back on his shelf and return to him, we did, until we exhausted all of them and we had nothing left. He had no receipts left. He did make a statement to me that there were numerous bottles of alcohol that were purchased from the liquor stores. He wasn't sure which ones, and further advised that the wine was from the previous owner in 2008. Based on that, based on what was left, the alcohol that was left that did not have receipts was seized and transferred to Annapolis.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hurley, you have questions for the inspector?
Yes, I do. Ms. Mangold, do you know if the comptroller's office keeps bulk transfer permits going back 12 years?
I'm not sure, sir.
You know if the Liquor Board of Baltimore City keeps bulk transfer permits going back 12 years?
No, sir, I don't know that information.
Do you know how long someone has to keep records of purchases in Maryland?
For us, I believe it's 2 years.
Is it possible that any of these bottles on the shelf were older than 2 years?
It's possible, yes.
Did you look at any of these bottles?
Agent Southworth, who's the other agent, he read the Jules dates of them, but that I didn't have the specific bottles. To answer your question, sir, I didn't have the specific bottles written down as far as dates. I didn't write the dates.
Did you look at the dates of every bottle that you confiscated?
No.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Let's bring in Mr. Southworth, please.
Doing that right now. Inspector Southworth, we brought you back on as a panelist.
Yes, sir.
Inspector, so Agent Mangold has told us about what she did on February 12th. Can you tell us what your role was, please?
My role was to cross the with the manufacturer date on bottles in question.
You're breaking up. I think you said you were making a connection between dates and the bottles?
Correct. The purchase dates that he had with the invoices that he provided and the production codes that were on each of the bottles.
Okay. And what did you find?
They didn't match it. For what we took, they didn't match up. Anything that was that we could match up, we either returned or we just didn't confiscate.
Okay. Was that the extent of your work there?
For there, yes. That's I spent 20 years in the alcohol industry, so that's for my expertise.
All right, Mr. Hurley, you have questions for the inspector?
Yeah, Mr. Southworth, did you do the inventory of the bottles confiscated?
I did a large part of the inventory, yes.
Did you record the dates of each of the bottles taken into custody?
No, I did not.
Did you notice that the bottles were, many of them dated before 2008?
I believe that the wine was.
My question, Mr. Southworth, was did you notice that a significant number of the bottles were dated before 2008?
I did not.
If I showed you a picture of 3 of the bottles randomly taken from one of the cases from the comptroller's office, Could you tell me if they looked familiar?
It's been March. I can try.
Were you aware that there was a request for photos of each of the bottles confiscated made on Friday?
I would not know that.
I have no further questions for Mr. Southworth.
Okay. Do you wish to present testimony yourself, Mr. Hurdle?
I thought there were other inspectors.
Well, I don't know. Did the other inspectors do additional work, or is this going to be cumulative? Maybe Mr. Southworth. Were there other inspectors who did additional work on this case, or is it the same?
Just other inspectors and agents did work on the case as far as gathering the bottles and doing the inventory, but I don't know the division of labor on that.
All right.
Mr. South, do you know who took the master inventory list?
The master inventory list, it should be probably Agent Mangold.
Okay. So we don't know. But we can bring them in.
Okay, that's fine. I'll bring in order Agent Herndon, then Agent Bragg, then Agent Cusimano.
Okay.
In that order. So, Agent Herndon, I'm making a panelist right now. And Agent Herndon's unmuted.
Agent Herndon, this is the chairman. Were you?
I'm sorry, sir, you broke up on that.
Mr. Atkins, it looks like we lost the chairman.
Yeah, the chairman's internet connection seems to be fading in and out. Commissioner Greenfield, do you want to take up the line of questioning now?
Sure.
Getting the chairman back on?
Sure. Far be it for me to try and step in his shoes, but I'll do my best. Mr. Herndon, can you tell us what role you played on the date in question on February 12th?
On February 12th this year, I was asked by Agent Mangold, her, and other inspectors and agents to the location, and my role was simply to assist with the gathering of some of the bottles of alcohol and transport.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, you're back on.
Mr. Chairman, you're back on.
Okay. So, all right. So I'm sorry. Did you say, Mr. Herndon, that you were involved in the inventory?
I was involved in the physical gathering of the bottles and placing them in boxes and transport, not necessarily verifying.
Okay. So I think we need to ask one of the other agents then. Okay.
Okay, that's no problem. I'm now bringing in Agent Bragg. I just made him a panelist, and his video footage should be on. There he is.
Okay,
Yes,
Agent Bragg, you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, so we're wondering, were you involved in creating the inventory on this case?
I was, as Michelle or Agent Mangold was calling off bottles and listing that they were not, I guess, supported by any invoices, she would call off a bottle, or I would call off what I have, and then we would give them to other agents to package.
Okay, Mr. Hurdle, you have questions for Agent Bragg?
Mr. Bry, my question is, given that the state law is that the inventory records have to go back 2 years, in your experience as a comptroller's agent, have you ever encountered bottles that were over 2 years old and not on the list, but purchased legally?
If they weren't on a list, there wasn't any way to determine one way or another how they were purchased. But obviously, going through any liquor establishment, you're going to find bottles that are over 2 years old, depending on just the popularity of it.
And those bottles are considered in violation of the rules or regulations, correct?
I had an airplane going over. I couldn't hear you.
Sure, I'm sorry. If a bottle was purchased 2.5 years ago and it's at the store and there's no record of it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in violation of the rules and records requirement, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that all the agents then, Mr. Akras?
There's actually one more agent, Agent Cusimano,
All right, let's get
who's
him
on this case. And I'll bring in Mr. Cusimano right now. Agent Cusimano, just impaneled you. Can you please make sure your video footage is on, sir?
Believe I'm on.
I hear you, sir. I'm just panning for your video right now. Yep, Agent Cusimano, your video's on.
Great.
Right. Agent, were you involved in the inventory on this case?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, my role was a physical role, I guess you might say. I was assisting in the placing of the bottles in boxes and transporting them into vehicles to be moved into evidence.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Hurley, you have any questions for this agent?
Thank you.
Are you there, Mr. Hurdle?
Yeah, did you not hear me? No questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do you want to put on evidence as well?
At this time, I don't believe that any physical evidence has been presented into the record or moved into the record. There's been some testimony. So I'd like to renew my motion to dismiss. There's been a claim of 135 bottles, but no inventory of that 135 bottles has been moved into the record by any of the witnesses at this time. And I'd like to motion to dismiss.
It's in our record. We never require them to make admission of the evidence that's presented to us. It's part of our packet, so I'll deny the motion.
Is this a packet that's presented to the board prior to the hearing?
Yes. You should have
dismissed because there's evidence being presented that I don't have a chance to object to prior to its review.
I'll deny that motion as well.
I only have one document to introduce. It's a photo that I presented to the board to have it moved into the evidence. I sent it over this morning. I believe
we received it. It'll be admitted.
As you can see from the photo, there were 3 bottles taken from one box that was presented. I'd like to say that I picked through them. I didn't. I picked 3 random bottles from one box. The one box revealed that there were 3 bottles in there, one from 2006, and the white wine has turned a wonderful shade of orange. There's another bottle that's kind of beat up that looks like it's either a vintage 2013 or possibly 2003. And then there's a wonderful Grand Reserve from 1999. None of these are particularly special wines that you would find at your normal Mexican or Hispanic food restaurant. These are all wines, as was all of this inventory, either prior owner purchased or have been purchased outside the 2 years. There is no indication here from any of the testimony presented by anybody that any of this out 2 years. The liquor board and the comptroller's rule conflicts, the city rule being 1 year and the comptroller being a 2-year requirement. So I'm not sure if clients are supposed to follow the state law or the city rule, but ultimately, in the end, anything purchased prior to 2 years wouldn't be illegal. And that was brought to the testimony by one of the comptroller's investigators. There's no indication here that anything was purchased necessarily in the last 2 years by my clients. There's no indication it was purchased illegally. There doesn't appear to be anybody who has a bulk transfer permit. The comptroller's office doesn't know that they keep one. My client doesn't have one, which I certainly don't blame him. It's 12 years. The liquor board clears their records. They don't have a copy of the bulk transfer permit. And the only evidence of any photographic nature of any of the documents, of any of these bottles, is a photo that I personally took when I drove down to Annapolis to investigate the documents. And it shows that there are 3 bottles that are all dated at least 14 years or older. So there's a chance that most of this inventory, if not all of it, could be from the previous owner. But we don't really have good testimony on any of this. We have no further testimony at this time.
So you haven't put on any testimony. You're proffering on behalf of your client, and your proffer is that they've been in business for 11 years and have never purchased any alcohol. Everything's older than that. Is that correct?
My proffer is that you don't need records for alcohol purchased over 2 years ago based on state or city law. And anything that's in terms of the other alcohol, had we been given documents that were requested, we'd like to be able to have more exculpatory evidence of our own, indicating that the vast majority of this is 16, 17, 20 years old. I pulled 3 bottles myself because somebody had to do it. And it was me yesterday, 9 a.m. down in Annapolis. We pulled these 3 bottles from one of the boxes that they confiscated, and all the wine is at least 14 years old.
I think that the inspectors testified that they thought the wine might have been old too. Yes. Okay. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions?
I have no questions on this.
I do have one question, Mr. Hurdle. I understand your argument. I'm not sure I buy it in its entirety, but you keep referring to, this license was transferred in 2009. You refer to wine that could be, or alcohol that could be over 14, 15, 16, 17, 20 years old, your words. But yet, the licensee was cited for the exact same violation in 2011. How do we reconcile that? How do we reconcile the fact that they were cited 9 years ago for the same thing? Was the same argument used that the wine was from the previous owner in 2011, just 2.5 years before they got the license?
Well, I wasn't the one person who handled the matter back in 2011.
Understood.
That being said, my anticipation is anything that was found on the premises at the time was removed. This wine and the bulk of this alcohol, when I went to my client's establishment last week to kind of investigate, was all in an unusual storage cabinet kind of above the bar, somewhat out of sight, out of mind, and some of it used, to be honest, more as decor. His establishment, they sell a significant amount of beer, a significant amount of liquor. It's not a real big white wine and red wine type of place. As a result, some of they have these kind of wine racks along the walls, and that's where they keep much of this wine. And, from my discussions, I just don't think they sell very much. So some of it's kind of almost part of the establishment, and as opposed to on display as alcohol. In regards to the 2011 violation, my anticipation is it just wasn't found last time. That's my honest belief. I don't believe that my client in any capacity since 2011, certainly not 2012, and certainly not this year, sought out a really nice Batari Grand Reserve 1999 to keep at his restaurant. I think it's just a legacy bottle. There's just no other reason you'd have a $9 bottle of wine that's 21 years old.
Nothing further.
I didn't hear. Anything else, Commissioner?
Yes, Commissioner Guy. I just have one question also. Of the 135 bottles that were unaccounted for, well, were they all wine bottles or bottles of wine, or were there other liquors in that?
They were absolutely mixed, Mr. Commissioner Guy. I would never want to misrepresent that. They were absolutely a mix of liquor and wine, and it seems to be, from the inventory that I've seen, which again does not break down the age of the bottle or the potential year, or I don't want to use vintage for a $9 bottle of wine, but it doesn't break down kind of the age of the bottle, but it does look to be almost an even spread, maybe 40 or 50 bottles of liquor, I think, were taken, and then I think about 70 or 80 bottles of wine. It's my recollection. I think it's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, I have no further questions.
All right, Mr. Atkins, we have public comment.
If there are any members of the public that wish to give testimony now, please use the raise your hand function so we can impanel you. Mr. Chairman, I see no individuals that wish to give testimony in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Mr. Hurdle?
Not at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. On the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents, which includes the inventory, which does, as Mr. Hurdle conceded, show liquor as well as wine, and a number of the bottles of liquor open, I believe, based on the testimony that we received from the inspectors and the evidence, documentary evidence presented, that there is evidence sufficient to find a violation of Rule 4.08 small a on February 12, 2020, and of Alcoholic Beverage Article 6-311 small b1 on February 12, 2020. The licensees had this license for about 11 years. This is the fifth violation in that time, and as Commissioner Greenfield pointed out, even early on, there was another for purchasing from other than wholesaler. I understand it's a difficult time for all these people, so I don't intend to be harsh in this, but I would impose a $200 fine as to each of the violations for $400 and give them 30 days to pay. Commissioner?
Commissioner Guy, in consideration of the testimony and the evidence presented to the board in this case, I also find that the licensee is in violation of Rule 4.08A and violation of Alcohol Beverage Article 6-311B1 that took place on February the 12th, 2020. And I concur, I find them in violation, and I concur with the fine of $200 for each offense payable in 30 days.
Based upon the testimony, the evidence, I too find sufficient evidence to find a violation of Rule 4.08A on February 12th, 2020. We concur with the imposition of a $200 fine. I also find a violation of Alcoholic Beverage Article 6-311 small b1 on February 12th, 2020, and also concur with the imposition of a $200 fine.
I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Applicant Exhibit 1, photos. Board Exhibit 1, MD Comptroller, incident report.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Commissioners, Mr. Melvin's going to be taking over on the iPad, just to keep everyone in the loop.
Is Mr. Kudinski representing anybody in any of these cases, or?
Next case.
Next case.
Okay, Mr. Kudinski is the next case. Thank you, I appreciate that. Calling the next case, Carol D. Wilson, 627 Duncan Street, LLC, trading as Janae's 2, 625 through 27 North Duncan Street. It's a Class D beer, wine, and liquor license. A violation of Rule 4.08A, relations with wholesalers, January 29, 2020. A violation of Alcoholic Beverages Article 6-311B1, possession of alcohol purchased from other than a wholesaler on January 29, 2020. I would just ask that Agent Mangold, Agent Bragg, and Agent Cusimano stay on the line here, and I'm going to pull in the other agents as we speak.
I just want to let you guys know that apparently Agent Bragg's computer shut down, so he's rebooting and he had to restart everything, just so everyone knows where he is.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's come back to him, but let's swear who we have. Mr. Kudinski, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, would you identify yourself for the record, please?
For the record, Melvin J. Kudinski, 320 North Charles Street.
Who's with you?
And Mr. Brown and another individual. You want to swear them in?
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry. What was Miss Brown's first name? I didn't hear that.
Ronnie Brown.
Okay, I'm still having trouble hearing that. Okay. Please raise your right hand Thank you. Do you want to swear in the agents as well?
We can. I mean, they're still under oath as far as I'm concerned, but if they're on, let's
Okay.
swear everybody.
Okay. I think there's a Mr. Madison on here that's new.
Right.
Or is that just?
Okay. Please raise your right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God, or under penalty of perjury? And please state your name before answering as loud as you can.
Rodney Brown, I do.
Ola Banjo, I do.
Robert Madison, I do. Michael Cusimano, I do. Michael Calvert, I do.
Okay.
Okay, we have everyone then? Mr. Kadensky, is this going to be admission or denial?
This will be a denial, and if you give me you would humor me for a second here, I can tell you why with regard to one of the charges. And I'm assuming that Inspector Perez is available.
I assume he is. Is he here?
Inspector Perez is not on the line right now.
All right, well then, with regard to, you want me to go forward and I'll just explain why?
Yes.
With regard to 4.08A, relation to wholesalers, that matter was before the board on February the 13th, 2020, in which Inspector Perez testified that he went in and allegedly, besides a trash violation, found bottles of that he couldn't verify that were receipts for. If you look on your packet that was given to you, it shows that on February 13th, there was a violation of 4.08A, and there was a guilty finding on that. So my objection to this is that it is the same charge that was heard by the board on February the 13th, and this is duplicitous.
Do we, Mr. Ackers, is there a way for us to verify that?
Well, I mean, I don't have, Agent Perez wasn't part of this case. The information, Agent Perez did conduct an investigation that led to a violation, but in regards to relations with wholesalers, Agent Perez then provided that information to the comptroller's office, and they conducted their own investigation independent of Agent Perez's investigation. So this was an investigation that was performed on an entirely different date by entirely different agents from an entirely different agency.
Well, my reply is that it's still the same violation of 4.08A, and in the reports that you have is that they were given information by the board, the controller's office, when they came, and also mentioned on information provided them by Andy Perez of the Baltimore City Liquor Board, and that information was the same information that was given to the board on February the 13th, on which the board found a violation of 4.08A. So I'm saying that's in sum and substance, it's the same information and the same, and they were convicted on that day, and it's shown in your packet that they were given a violation, guilty finding, fined $500.
Mr. Knessy, what's your position with respect to the Article 6.311 violation?
All right, my argument with regard to that is probably more interesting from the point of view, although most people don't think so, that the section that they were was charged with, it says that under that section that a retailer may not, under B1, purchase any alcoholic beverages except from a licensed manufacturer, wholesaler, or bulk transfer permit holder. There was no evidence in any of the documentation that there was any purchase.
And just, Mr. Chair, just for some additional information, the violation that the board brought against this licensee was for occurrences on January 7th, 2020, Specifically to the relation with wholesalers, this is where Agent Perez found 100 bottles of various spirits and 6 cases of beer, malt beverages that weren't accounted for. In the investigation conducted by the Comptroller's Office on January 29, 2020, the Comptroller's Office discovered 499 bottles of beer, wine, and spirits that could not be accounted for. So there is different evidence that's involved here.
Well, that's why we would be important if Agent Perez was available to indicate whether there was what he saw.
I can't hear you, Mr. Kadensky.
I said that's why it'd be important if Agent Perez was available to indicate whether or not that amount was there, and he just didn't notice it. The licensee through their agents indicate they made no other purchases from the date of the initial time that Agent Perez was there. So that was on the premises when he did his initial investigation.
All right. Well, let's. If it's going to be denials, let's proceed. Who's going to be the first agent? Agent Mangold.
Yeah, and Agent Mangold is unmuted.
Okay, Agent, this is the chair. You want to tell us what you found on January 29?
Yes, sir. On January 29th, about 2 o'clock, we went to Janae's, located at 625, 627 Duncan Street in Baltimore. At that time, I conducted an alcohol inspection. This was based off of information received from Baltimore City Liquor License Commission, Mr. Perez. Based on that, I conducted an inspection. There was only a few receipts. In fact, I had them.
I was already in.
I had the receipts listed in my report. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 receipts for all the bottles that were in the building. We found upstairs like a box that had all the bottles that were listed on the receipts that they had. They had no more receipts after that. I spoke to a gentleman who identified himself as Rodney Brown on the phone, on the cell phone, and he advised that he was the owner, and he explained that I explained to him there were only a few invoices for the alcohol, for all the alcohol that was in his business. And that he said he understood he wouldn't be able to respond to the business. And I went on and seized bottles of alcohol that didn't have receipts for it. And those bottles were submitted in my report, along with a evidence inventory sheet of all those that weren't, that did not have a receipt.
Okay. Mr. Kness, you have questions for the inspector?
Was Agent Perez there with you?
I don't know. I don't believe he was. No.
Were you able to look at the inventory that Agent Perez took back on January the 7th?
No, sir.
So you wouldn't have any way to know whether what he took as inventory was different than what you took. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
All right. And how many people were there from your agency?
Let me go back through. It was.
Well, let me just tell you, you list here yourself, Agent Berkeley, Agent, is it Brig, B-E-R-I-G, Agent Calvert, and Agent Cusimano, and Supervisor Madison?
Yes, those were the ones that were there.
Is there anybody left?
No, no, it's better to have more than less, because it's always easier to tell somebody we don't need you than to have to call somebody and get them to travel to come and get to your location.
It sounded like the SWAT squad there.
We're far from SWAT. We're older folks.
Well, yeah, probably not older than me, though. So you have no way of knowing that what Agent Perez saw earlier is any different than what you saw. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, fine. No further questions.
Okay. Do
And
you
I
want to
wouldn't,
put on any testimony, Mr. Knansky?
I wouldn't need to go over, other than Mr. Brown is here, and I'll proffer or I'll let him testify. Depends whatever is easy. I'll take the path of least resistance here. He would testify, and I'll have him verify that what Agent Perez saw earlier, than which there was a finding on, was the same that was there when they came in. There were no additional purchases. So that was the one the board found them guilty on back in February. So with regard to 4.08, I would argue this is the same.
I can't hear you now.
Now, with regard to Article 6-311B-1, there's nobody to testify that any of this alcohol was purchased from other than a wholesaler, and ask that be dismissed.
Okay. Do the commissioners have questions?
Commissioner Guy, no, I have no questions on this.
No questions.
Okay. We have public comment.
If there are any individuals that wish to give testimony, please use the raise your hand function so I can impanel you. Mr. Chair, I see no individuals that wish to give testimony in this case.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Knansky?
No, that would be my argument.
Mr. Akers, I'm sorry, I thought Councilman Pinkett was going to chime in on this case. Is that not correct?
No, Councilman Pinkett is scheduled for the case on Fulton Avenue, sir.
Okay. My apologies. Thank you.
Actually, I've seen Agent Perez is actually, present now. So if there's any questions
I do have
for Agent Perez, I just saw him come on.
I have a question for him.
All right, I'm going to make him a panelist right now.
Let's swear him in.
Agent Perez, could you please turn on your audio and video? All right, Agent Perez is on. Madam Reporter.
Okay, please raise your right hand. Looks like he froze up.
He's present.
Okay. Oh, I just can't see him on my end. Okay, there he is. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, to help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
Agent Perez, can you hear me? This is the chair.
Yes.
I have a question for you. When you violated this licensee for the relations with wholesaler violation that we heard back in February, do you know how many bottles of alcohol were involved?
I do not recall, but I had I took an inventory of over 3 pages.
So
side by side.
They found 499 bottles this time. Was it the same 499 bottles?
I do not recall, sir.
Okay.
I think their inspection was about a week or 2 weeks after my inspection.
Okay. Mr. Knansky, you have any questions?
No, that's certainly what I was reading from his violation report, and that pretty much matches up to what was submitted back in February.
Okay. Commissioners have questions?
Commissioner Guy, no, I have no questions.
Agent Perez, let me just ask you. So, from what I gather, you violated them a few weeks before this incident. But was the information you provided? Did you provide information to the comptroller's office separately? I'm trying to understand, and I think to the chairman's question, it sounds like you don't have an exact accounting of whether. You don't know if it was 499 bottles that you inventoried. Is that right?
I took an estimate. It wasn't an exact count. It was an estimated count, which I don't have in front of me right now.
Okay, thank you. No questions.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Knansky?
No, I would renew based on this follow-up that it was the same amount that he was violated for before, and there's no violation of 6-311B1 about purchases. Thank you.
So with respect to, well, first of all, I'm going to base my ruling on the matters that are contained in the charging documents, the testimony received, the proffers from counsel, and any documents we have before us today. With respect to the Rule 4.08 small a violation, I don't think there's a way for us to determine whether it's duplicative based on the testimony. So I'm going to dismiss that. At least I would vote to dismiss that. The other, I think we can imply from the inventory that these were purchased, and I would find a violation of rule of alcoholic beverage article 6-311 small b1 on January 29, 2020. And because it's a second offense within a relatively short period of time, I would impose a $250 fine and give them 30 days to pay.
Commissioner Guy, in consideration of the testimony and the evidence presented to the board in this case, I also find that the licensee is in violation of alcohol beverage article 6-311B1. I would also concur to dismiss the violation of rule 4.08A. I also concur with the fine of $250 for that violation with 30 days to pay.
Based upon the evidence before us, the testimony, the proffers from counsel, I too would dismiss Rule 4.08A. I think there's insufficient evidence based upon the previous charge that they are, it's not clear to me that they're one and the same. I would find a violation of alcoholic beverage article 6-311B1 and conclude with the imposition of a $250 fine.
Thank you. Russell?
Michael Zippis for the record. Board Exhibit 1, Maryland Comptroller Incident Report. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Mr. Kadinsky, please note that the board's decision will be mailed to you, including payment and next steps.
All right. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. At this time, I'm going to call case number 4. And the only agent that I'll need from the comptroller's office will be Agent Mangold. So I'm going to leave Agent Mangold on. Aaron Estefanos and Michael Debrew, Doc's Liquors Incorporated, trading as Doc's Liquor, 1501 North Fulton Avenue. This is Class A beer, wine, and liquor license. Violation of Rule 4.16, illegal conduct, December 30th, 2019. At this point, I'm going to bring on Mr. Previs. And I do not see Councilman Pinkett on the phone. I have Ms. Mangold who's present.
All right, Mr. Previs, you identify yourself for the record, please.
Peter Previs on behalf of the licensees, Aaron Estefanos and Michael Gebru.
And are they present?
Am I good?
Yep, turn on your video, Mr. Previs.
Yes.
They're present? Okay. So let's swear who we have.
Okay. What are the names of the witnesses, please?
Michael Gebru, G-H-E-B-R-U.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Denial.
Admission, Mr. Chairman.
All right, you want to tell us what happened on December 30th?
Yes, sir. Mr. Gebru, who is with me here today, is normally the full-time operator of Doc's Liquors. His son, who was a very athletic young man, had a very bizarre heart condition and ended up having a major heart attack and was in a coma for several months. And he passed away on November 8th of 2019. Mr. Gebru, in addition to being involved with his son's condition, was also involved with his wife having a lung condition and was otherwise distraught. And during his mourning and dealing with his family situation, had a cousin of his, a Mr. Barakat Tamrad, who's listed as the counter person when Agent Mangold came in. He was actually operating the store. Mr. Gebru was home when Agent Mangold got there. He went to the store. He didn't fight anything. He said, I wasn't involved, but it's on me. It's my store. Wherever Mr. Barakat got the cigars from. Those cigars were seized by the comptroller's office. He contacted me. We did not request a hearing. We allowed those to be forfeited. The agent's report indicates a value of about $1,800. Additionally, he was charged in the district court in Baltimore City. He received a probation before judgment for the one charge, other tobacco product violation for being in possession of these, and he received a $150, $157.50 fine, including the court cost, and was given probation before judgment on March 5th, 2020. In light of all of that and his condition, he admits the violation because the cigars were on his store. He asked the board to take that into consideration in deciding its penalty.
Okay, thank you. Did the councilman come on, Mr. Akers?
Not that I see. I do not see his aide nor the councilman on as an attendee.
Okay. Do the commissioners have questions?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Do we have public comment, Mr. Akers?
I see one phone number here. It's just a call in. Hello, I've unmuted you. This is Tom Akers, Deputy Director. Is this somebody who'd like to speak on Doc's Liquors?
This is Councilman's aide. I had some technical difficulties, but Councilman will not be attending this hearing, and I do not have comment.
Okay, all right. I just saw only a phone number. I thank you, and I appreciate that, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
If there are any other individuals that wish to give testimony on this matter, I would ask that you please use the raise your hand function. Mr. Chairman, I see no other individuals that wish to give testimony in this matter.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Previous, anything further?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. On the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents, the prosecuting counsel, and any testimony received, I find a violation of Rule 4.16 on December 30, 2019. I'm sympathetic, of course, to Mr. Gebru's family situation, and I appreciate the fact that he has suffered financially from this error as well. But it's not the first violation. So I'm going to impose a nominal fine of $100, given 30 days to pay.
Commissioner Gard, in consideration of the testimony and evidence presented to the board in this case, I also concur with the chairman that there is a violation of Rule 4.16 illegal conduct that took place on December the 30th, 2019, and I concur with the fine of $100 for this offense.
Based upon the evidence before us, the proffered from counsel, I too find a violation of Rule 4.16 on December 30th, 2019, and would concur with the imposition of a $100 fine.
Ms. Russell?
Protocol exhibits, Maryland State Comptroller Incident Report. Thank you.
Mr. Previs, you will be receiving correspondence in the mail in regard to the board's decision and next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling the last case on the docket, Stephen W. Preston, The Manor, Baltimore, LLC, trading as The Manor, 924 North Charles Street. This is a Class B beer, wine, and liquor license, a violation of Rule 4.16, illegal conduct, May 31st, 2020. Violation of Rule 3.12, general welfare, May 31st, 2020. And a violation of Rule 3.02, cooperation, May 31st, 2020. I'm going to bring all of those panelists in now. And this will be represented by Mr. Fogelman.
Good afternoon.
Good name is Fogelman. Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Stephen W. Fogelman on behalf of licensee Stephen W. Preston.
Okay, do we have Mr. Preston online?
I'm here.
Okay, and do we have Agent Clark or Inspector Tudhope?
We do. They're all turning on their cameras right now. Inspector Tudhope just turned her camera on. Agent Clark is in the process, and Inspector Robinson is in the process as well.
Okay, as soon as we get them,
Agent Clark is present. Inspector Robinson is present. Inspector Tudhope is present.
Okay. Would the reporter please swear the witnesses?
Please raise your right hand. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury? And please state your name before your response.
Stephen W. Preston, I do.
Inspector Petto, I do.
Inspector Robinson, I do.
Agent Daryl Clark, I do.
Okay. Mr. Fogelman, admissions or denials?
Denials. I'll be brief. However, we have two further witnesses who need to be sworn who are on this call, Robert Gay and Joshua Persing.
All right. Let's swear them.
Okay. I just need to see their video, Mr. Gay and Mr. Persing. Okay. If you could just turn on your video.
Hello.
Okay. Okay, I see Mr. Persing, and now I'm just waiting for Mr. Gay's video.
Hello. Sorry, having technical difficulties there.
Oh, no, that's okay. Okay. All right, please raise your right hand. Thanks. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or under penalty of perjury? And please state your name before your response.
Joshua Persing, I do.
Robert Gay, I do.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Inspector, still on here?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell us what the manner on May 31?
Inspector Petto, Baltimore City Liquor Board. On Sunday, May 31st, 2020, at approximately 1:08 a.m., CSR number 20-00303-110 was received for alleged disturbing the peace, loud music, front door open at Sangria on 922 North Charles. While observing the establishment, Inspector Tudhope, Robinson, and Agent Clark witnessed people entering and exiting the establishment next door, known as the Manor, located at 924 Charles Street. Upon further observation, Inspector also observed lights turned on the second floor and that seemed to be a number of people in the establishment. At approximately 1:35 a.m., Inspector and agents decided further investigation. Inspector Tuttle found the door locked and, after knocking, was let in by a male sitting on the inside steps. Upon entering, a highly intoxicated female patron exited and fell down the stairs. Inspector Robinson and Agent Clark checked on her well-being while Inspector Tuttle proceeded up the stairs to the bar area. Inspector Tuttle witnessed at least 6 or more patrons being rushed out the door on the opposite side of the bar area. Upon entering the bar area, Inspector Tuttle observed the bar area was covered in beer bottles, half-empty drinks, and half bottles of alcohol. Inspector also observed the trash can next to the bar overflowing with bottles and empty plastic cups. Inspector followed the path the customers were rushed out of and found it led to the kitchen. In the back was an exit into the parking lot and alleyway behind the building. Inspector Tuttle proceeded back to the bar area to meet back with Inspector Robinson and Agent Clark. Inspector Tuttle entered bar area and was confronted by a white male who stated he was the property owner and proceeded to stand only a few feet from Inspector, not wearing any mask or practicing any social distancing, and shout at Inspector, stating the following: "We needed to get the F out, that we had no effing right to be in the building and no one had effing invited us in. We needed to get the F out." Inspector Tuttle tried talking to an individual but was unable to. At this time, Agent Clark had located the licensee and spoken to him and instructed both Inspector Tuttle and Robinson to leave the building. As we left, the individual continued screaming at inspectors and agent. Inspectors left the building without any further incident. All events occurred in the city of Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you. Mr. Fogelman, do you have questions?
How many people did you speak to at the establishment?
Sorry, sir, can you repeat that question?
How many people did you speak to at the establishment?
I spoke to the person that led us into the door, and then I tried to speak to the individual that was shouting at me. Those were the two I actually talked to.
All right, no, but you didn't. What kind of conversation did you have with the person who let you in?
We knocked on the door. We showed him our badges. I stated we're from the liquor board, and he let us in.
Okay, so that's not much of a conversation.
No, but we did speak to him.
Sure. And then did you try to speak to this intoxicated female, or did you have any conversation with her?
I did not. I was already past her at this stage, so Agent Clark and Inspector Robinson was the one that helped her up.
Okay. And did you... Okay, there's some audio problems, not on my end. Okay. Did you... were you able to ask the person that you spoke with who was upset, were you able to ask him who these people were?
Sir, he wouldn't let me get in a word. I stated we were from the liquor board as he started shouting at me over and over to get the F out, get the F out. We are not, no one had invited us the F in. I tried to speak to him. I was not able to.
All right, I have no further questions for you. Thank you, Inspector Tudhope.
Thank you, sir.
Is Agent Clark present?
Yes.
So do you have anything additional to add?
Yes, I was outside with the young lady. I wasn't able to get a response from her, asking her what was she doing there. She just was crying and stuff, so we just aided her to make sure that her safety was okay at this time.
Okay. And did you observe any of this other interaction between Inspector Tudhope and the man inside?
We had actually came in after speaking with her, and I did see the argument at that point when we came to the middle. I missed the part with the individuals being let out the back, but we were witnesses of the arguing and the yelling, and that's when wanted to protect the safety of the inspectors to get out of the establishment.
Mr. Fogelman, you have questions for the
Very
agent?
briefly. Thank you, Agent. You testified that you saw the argument, but you were not able to hear the words. Isn't that right?
Sorry, didn't hear you. Can you repeat yourself?
Yeah, you just testified that you saw the argument, but in fact, you did not hear the argument. Isn't that right?
We were present there with the yelling and the argument. We were then came into the middle of the establishment, so we were present with the argument. Yes.
Right, but music was playing. Is it your testimony that you heard everything that was said between Inspector Tudhope and the person who was upset?
I didn't hear everything specifically on what was said, but when the voices were getting elevated, that's when we were there in the middle of the establishment, and he started yelling at Inspector Tudhope, and also Inspector Robinson and myself, Agent Clark.
All right, and were you able to speak with anyone else in the facility?
No, I was not able to, sir.
Okay.
Except for wait a minute. What's his name? The owner guy. He apologized at that particular time and stated that his partner was just to please forgive him in his actions. So that was probably the part there.
All right, and thank you, Agent. The report says that you did speak with Mr. Robert Gay about not allowing individuals to consume alcoholic beverages on premises. Isn't that right? That's what the report says.
Yes, sir.
And in fact, you two were headed to the area of the bar so that he could supply you with the requisite licenses and permits that you needed to see. Isn't that right?
No, sir. Inspector Tudhope was the actual point person for this actual case here. At this point, I was just actually worried about the safety of the inspectors after aiding the young lady in the front. So all of the seeing licenses and different things, I did not have privy information to that.
No. Okay, so it's your testimony that you did not go or ask anyone for licenses or permits.
I'm looking at it now. Agent Clark had a look at the licensee and spoken to him and instructed both Inspector Tudhope and Robinson to leave the building as we left the individual. That's the part. That's what I did based upon the report.
Okay. And did you have any chance to speak to Mr. Gay about who these people were, why they were here, or quite frankly, was the incident overshadowed by the discussion between Inspector Tudhope and that other individual?
Correct. I did not have an opportunity.
Okay. All right. Now, who wrote this report, Agent?
Inspector Tudhope.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay. Do you have evidence you want to present, Mr. Fogelman?
Yes. Thank you very, very much, Your Honor. I'll first.
Mr. Chair, we do have one more Inspector Robinson here, too.
I understand, but I think we have sufficient evidence, so, we'll come back if we need them.
All right. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Let me call the licensee first, Mr. Preston.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Mr. Preston. You're the licensee at 924 North Charles, isn't that right?
I am. That's correct.
In the interest of time, tell me if I'm right. You got the license and opened up on January 23rd of 2020, right?
Yes, a month before the shutdown.
All right, you had 7 lovely weeks before the shutdown on March 16th of the same year, right?
Yes.
All right. So what was significant about this meeting or about the evening of May 30th? What was going on in the world?
Sure, absolutely. Just a few days prior, the governor had the announcement about opening up restaurants and bars for outdoor dining and service. And up until this point, the entire restaurant had been shut down since the March date, at which time the doors were locked. Things weren't able to get put away because we shut down the minute that the governor asked us to shut down. So this date in particular was important in order to regroup with our staff, who we had to unfortunately lay off temporarily as well as us as business partners to look at the potential for opening back up and trying to save our business.
All right. And as a result, well, let me ask you this. Did you get an email from the liquor board with the governor's order and frequently asked questions letter from them?
Yes, and
Right.
we read the material and we were abiding by it in order to stay compliant.
But did you think that you were okay to have a meeting of employees on May 30th?
Yes, because we were under the threshold for the number of employees that were allowed to be in the space. And at that time, we were social distancing in order to keep within the governor's mandate.
All right. So tell me the real purpose of this meeting. I mean, tell me what your plans were or what you were
Sure.
thinking.
When I was there, the plan was to sit down with staff who were the individuals who were there at the time the inspectors arrived in order to regroup and find out, one, what staff would come back at that time so that if we did open our doors, we wouldn't be short-staffed and we could have a successful relaunch of the business following the pandemic shutdown. And two, to strategize as a business how we could properly open up in order to meet the governor's mandate, as well as the guidelines that the city had put forth, since the two were completely separate in terms of the city's regulations and the state's regulations.
All right, and let me ask you, well, first let me ask you, who was invited to this meeting?
Sure, it was myself, Robert Gay, Josh Persing, and a number of our staff who I believe you have the list of the staff who were there that night.
We'll get to that. So did you invite anyone and receive a regret they're not coming?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Did some people not respond?
Yes.
Were you concerned that due to the extra federal unemployment payments that you might have a hard time pulling your staff back together?
Absolutely. With the unemployment support, there was a lot of staff who didn't reply because they quite frankly were better off, not working at that time, and also fear of contracting, the virus.
Sure. So, so was anyone invited to this meeting who was not an employee of yours, who was not on
No.
payroll as of March 16th?
Absolutely not.
All right, and I'm going to ask you to direct your attention to the employee list that's been submitted for evidence. I'd like to have it marked as Exhibit 1.
We have them, Mr. Fogelman. They'll be received. If you
All right. And so, yeah, so Mr. Preston, the list you provided to the liquor board is the complete list of employees as of March 16th. Isn't that right?
Yes, correct.
And no one off that list was invited to this meeting.
Only the people on that list were invited to the meeting.
Right. And no one who was not an employee was invited or on the premises that evening at your invitation. Isn't that right?
No.
All right. I'm going to further direct you to the sales summary export of April 1st, 2020 to September 1st, 2020. What is that what is that document?
I'm sorry, there was a car that just went by. Could you say that again?
Yes, Mr. Preston, the sales summary export from your point of sale from April 1st to September 1st of this year. What does that demonstrate?
Demonstrates that no sales were made on the premises during that time.
And you've made no sales even after the partial reopening?
No.
Okay. And then the last two exhibits are letters. Was Mr. Josh Krosny present on that evening?
Yes.
And was employee Guy Messina present on that evening?
Yes.
All right. Do you know who else was present that evening?
Yes, it was myself. It was Josh Persing, Robert Gay, Cynthia, and I believe also, Rob, Josh, Cynthia, Guy, and
was it Brian Scott?
Yes, Brian Scott. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We talked about it previously. And what do you know about the intoxicated female at the front of the establishment?
She was never in our building, nor did she come from our building. We believe she came from an adjacent bar up the street and
All right.
happened to be sitting on our steps, which are open to the public to sit on.
Did anyone from your establishment approach her at any point?
I believe someone gave her a glass of water because she was sitting on the stairs, but she was never given any alcohol from our building, nor was in our building.
Nor was let in to use a bathroom, anything?
No.
Okay. And what time did you leave this meeting, Mr. Preston?
Sure. I left the meeting about 8:30.
Okay. And so that would leave everyone who you just described there in the building at that time?
Yes.
All right. Did you see this intoxicated female on your way out? Or is
I
this
did
just something
not.
you heard about?
Yep.
Which one is it?
Oh, it's just something I heard about.
Okay. All right. Very well. Did you believe for any minute that you weren't allowed to have an employee meeting on May 30th, 31st?
I did not.
Okay. I have nothing further.
I have a couple of questions.
Wait, real quick. Let's, tell me if this is a fair characterization. You've basically had no revenue since March 16th, 2020, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I have a few questions for Mr. Preston, okay? Mr. Preston, your meeting was concluded by 8 or 8:30, is that correct?
The meeting in total, no. I had to leave earlier than the rest of the meeting had to continue.
So it lasted for 4 more hours?
It was a meeting with staff, so yes, I could not stay that long.
No, my question, how long were you there?
I was there probably from about 6 o'clock till 8:30.
So the meeting went from 6 o'clock until 1 o'clock in the morning?
When I was there prior to that, sir, we were rounding up the empty cups, bottles, etc., that were in the photos that had been left there when our establishment shut, because we literally didn't have time to straighten up when the establishment shut down for the pandemic.
So it took over 6 hours?
Yes.
Okay. And then when our inspector came into the establishment, they rushed everybody out the back door. Why was that if they were having a lawful meeting?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Why was everybody rushed out the back door when the inspector appeared?
I believe that was incorrect. The staff actually were going out the back door for a smoke break. That was where staff go typically to smoke, in the back parking lot, so it doesn't appear or encourage folks to congregate out front of our building, especially with the guidelines that were in place.
So honestly, you want me to believe that they all decided to have a smoke break at the very instant that the inspectors arrived?
I do.
Okay.
I'll stand by my staff.
All right. And who's this guy who decided to get loud and obnoxious with our staff?
Yes, that's Josh Persing, who's on here, who's the partner of my business partner, Robert Gay.
Okay. All right. The commissioners have any questions?
No questions.
Commissioner Guy?
This is Commissioner Guy. I would like to ask Inspector Toho. She's mentioned that the patrons were being rushed out of the back door. I'd just like to know how she observed that.
Hi, sir, Inspector Tarop. As I came to the bar, I looked across the hallway. There was a hallway in front of me, and there was actually someone.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes.
As I came to the bar, I could actually see someone physically showing them out, and they were not walking out as casually to go smoke. They were actually rushing out. I mean, there's a difference between walking out and rushing out, and they were definitely rushing out the back door, sir.
Okay, so it was someone was kind of guiding them out.
Yes, sir.
As opposed to a group of people walking out the back door.
Exactly, sir. Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions.
No questions of this witness who was not present at that time. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fogelman, anything further?
Yes, Mr. Robert Gay.
Okay.
Yes, hello.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Gay. What is your role at the establishment?
General manager.
All right, and without duplicating testimony, you and Mr. Preston decided to have an employee meeting or get together on May 30th,
Yes, correct.
and that was as a result of the governor's directive allowing outdoor dining starting May 29th.
Correct.
All right. Did everything Mr. Preston say, was that correct up until the time he left at 8:30?
Correct.
All right. Now fill us in on what happened after 1 o'clock. Well, let's start, Mr. Gay, with the intoxicated pedestrian near your establishment.
Yes, that was correct. That she was sitting outside on our step. We did offer her water. I know that she was crying. I think she had called for an Uber. We offered her, she could sit there. Like I said, she did not enter the building to use she didn't ask to use the restroom, anything.
All right. Did you speak with her, Mr. Gay?
I did talk to her, yes. Yeah. And I told her we would leave the door propped open, like if any emergency happened, she could just yell in there and then somebody come to help her.
All right. And how many times did you see her?
One time.
All right. Had you ever seen this woman before?
No.
Have you ever seen her since?
No.
Okay. She was, to the best of your knowledge, she was never a customer in the brief 7 weeks before the shutdown?
No.
Okay. Let's fast forward to the entry of the inspectors.
Yeah, so I want to go to that. Yes, I was there. I was cleaning up. Like I said, I was sitting towards the end of the bar, so I did see the liquor board coming in. As to her testimony, yeah, that is when I told, and a lot of those employees are very heavy smokers. I said, hey, we're going to need to handle this. Would you please go out the back hallway, as you always do, and smoke, go to the kitchen and smoke in the back area.
Did they ever come back out?
I don't know how, like I said, they're heavy smokers. So I don't know. They had 1 cigarette, 2 cigarettes. I asked them to go smoke as I needed to handle the situation.
Okay. And why did they go out back?
They always go out back. So that's our smoking area. There's a smoke post there. We don't let any of our employees smoke in the front of the establishment. And the side door is always is blocked. So
was there concern that if they smoked out front that it would attract the general public?
Yes, correct.
All right. Did you have any idea that calling this meeting was in some way contrary to the law?
No.
Did you read it? Did you read the law?
Yes, I did.
All right. Was there also a morale component to this employee meeting?
Yeah, that's why we weren't just sitting over there going paperwork. We talked about what people had done through the pandemic, how their unemployment, they got it, they didn't get it, so it wasn't just sitting there and going over spreadsheets and, hey, this is our re-up staffing plan. So it was still, it was conversation, which took so long, plus a little bit of cleaning involved. I had a ladder there. I was actually up on a ladder changing light bulbs. So I'm the maintenance guy too.
Okay. So you are the one who had contact with Agent Clark. Isn't that right?
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah.
What did you two talk about and what happened?
We just talked about, we started out right at the edge of the bar, the back bar, and we were standing there talking. There was music on. So I told him, I said I wanted to talk to him off to the side. So we started walking down the hallway, which the hallway goes back to the front hallway, going back to the hostess stand. He did not ask me to present any licenses, but I've been there every time the liquor board has came in, and with flying colors, we've never had a problem. And I was walking him up there. He did not ask to see the license, but the licenses are behind the host stand on 2 sheets of cardboard. They're taped on there. So I was offering to walk up that way to show him the licenses so we could get to that general area by the host stand when the other lady was coming up saying we're leaving.
All right,
so
but you
have time to present any license.
You cooperated with whatever Agent Clark asked.
If Mr. Clark had wanted to see the license, yeah, I was literally standing 2 feet away from the closet door that they're in. Yes, correct.
All right, and you've seen the employee list that we put into evidence?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was anyone not on that list invited to this meeting?
No.
Did anybody not on this list attend that meeting?
No.
Was there any member of the general public at any time in your establishment that night?
No.
Okay.
And and back to go ahead.
Did you overhear the conversation between Inspector Tudhope and your colleague?
I did not. As we started to walk, myself and the gentleman started walking towards the front, the music was on. You know, we were just talking. I mean, that building kind of echoes. So no, I did not.
Okay. All right.
It's a very old building.
Is there anything else relevant that you'd like to add?
At this time, I don't think so.
Okay. I thank you very much.
Okay. Do you have anything further, Mr. Fogelman?
It's going to be brief. It's Mr. Josh Persing. So you'll have a chance to speak with him. Thank you, Mr. Persing.
Hello.
Hi. I'm going to make it brief. You are assistant manager, assistant GM. Okay.
Correct.
You also agree that only employees were invited to a meeting on May 30th at your establishment.
Correct.
All right. Did you have any interaction with the intoxicated female out front?
Yes.
Okay.
So
What'd you do for her or say to her?
we had brought her out a glass of water, helped her call an Uber with her phone, and just told her that she could remain on our stoop until her ride arrived, and we left the door propped open in the event that she needed anything while she was waiting there.
Did you ever see her before, and have you ever seen her again?
No, never. It was the first time I've ever seen her before.
Okay. So, tell me what happened when Inspector Tudhope came in.
Of course, yeah. So, and first off, I want to apologize to Inspector Tudhope. I'm truly sorry for how I acted. This COVID crisis has been an ordeal for us. We were only open for about 30 days prior to having to close. We had just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars opening the establishment. It's been quite stressful, probably the worst time we've experienced this year. So she caught me on an off night. Things were looking up. Outdoor dining had just been reintroduced, and when Inspector Tudhope came in, she came in the hallway, snapping pictures with her phone and kind of yelling that we were in the wrong, that we were open, that the girl outside came from our bar and she knew it, and she was kind of, it was like whatever I said, she was making it difficult for me to even elaborate what was actually happening, that everyone in the building was employees. And that we were there organizing, cleaning, having a regrouping meeting, and just trying to pick ourselves back up after this pandemic. And she really wasn't interested in hearing any of that, which of course frustrated me, and I apologize completely. And that's when I asked her to leave.
All right, going forward, have you and your staff learned that that's not acceptable conduct?
Yes. This is certainly a learning lesson. It was not right of me to do what I did, and I apologize as much as I possibly can for the incident.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Persing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Mr. Persing. How many employees were there that evening?
There were 6, including Robert and myself.
So how many people in total?
When Steve was there, Steve left at 8:30. Steve Preston, there were 7, and then after Steve Preston left, there were 6 in total.
Okay. Anything further, Mr. Fogelman?
Yeah, I just want to make some argument. Thank you.
Okay, let's hear from you.
Let me be heard.
Let me just ask: do we have public comment, Mr. Ackert?
If there are any individuals of the public who are on the phone call right now, please use the raise your hand function. So I can impanel you as a witness. Mr. Chairman, I do not see any individuals who wish to give testimony in this matter.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fogelman, let's hear from you.
Yes, sir. Let me be heard as to the 3.12 and 416 charges first, if you will.
Yes.
Okay, and adopt my arguments from the hearing last week at 3500 O'Donnell. The general welfare and the illegal conduct don't apply here because by substantial evidence, we've shown it was a business meeting at a significant time in the state restaurant industry. Not a single person there that night was there for anything other than a business meeting. We put the employee list in, the testimony, the lack of sales, the point of sale system, and they all lead to the same conclusion. Now, again, as evidence, I use the board's own exhibits 2 and 3, the May 13th and 27th of May order from the governor, which uses the term general public. As you know, Merriam-Webster defines general public as all the people of an area. I called it last week the average Joe. And that was the 4th order in a row where the governor used that same plain language, where there was some confusion. His legal team could have expanded the prohibition on all indoor consumption, but they didn't. And as I said last week, it doesn't matter how the inspectors interpret the governor's order, it's how you interpret it. And let me talk about the plain language of the governor's executive order of not allowing on-premise consumption to the general public. There has been some talk in these hearings of the spirit or intent of the order. Courts don't even consider the spirit or intent of legislation. They only try to get into the minds of the politicians who wrote the laws when there's vagueness, when laws aren't clear. So I'm arguing here once again that general public is clear as day, and thus there's no reason to get into the intent or spirit of the governor's actions. Now let's go to the non-cooperation charge. I'm familiar with these cases on both sides of the board. It's a subjective test, kind of you know it when you see it. It's not unreasonable to conclude that the use of any profanity could sustain a charge. Given the events of this year, though, you got to look at it through a different lens. These guys put their life savings into this business. They open in January. Then along comes the COVID-19 shutdowns in mid-March. First, we're told it's going to be 2 weeks. Months come and go. You have to lay off your employees, and yet all your bills are still due. Then you hear outdoor dining is permitted. You call a meeting to figure out which your employees are even coming back, since they're getting an extra $600 a week on top of their state benefits. You buy them pizza for a morale-boosting meeting to figure out how we're going to get through this spring. And then at the end of the night, you're greeted by inspectors. Now, as I said before, COVID-19, everybody's trying to do the right thing. They're trying to help. Sometimes, though, there's been an investigative aspect to these charges that aren't getting done. An executive order violation is not like an underage sale charge. There, the cadet comes out with a bottle. There's really no questions to ask. We violate you. Here, the assistant manager clearly is frustrated because he's basically been told he's guilty before he's had a chance to discuss an investigation. He's told he's responsible for a drunk pedestrian waiting for an Uber that he doesn't have any idea who the heck she is. The inspector says these employees are sneaking out when he told them to just lay low for a minute. It just felt like everything, a ton of bricks hit him at that point, and his frustration came out so much that expletives came out of his mouth. He basically was trying to tell the inspectors that if they didn't want to hear his side of the story, then I guess they were done, so they ought to leave. He said it in a bad way. Look, I think we can agree that these non-cooperation charges are subjective and based on each individual case. Given this moment in time, May 31st, 2020, I don't know that a use of a dirty word leads to non-cooperation. I think the person who made the statement is genuinely sorry. This case reminds me of the board's dismissal of a non-cooperation charge last year at 411 and 413 East Baltimore Street, where a licensee had a very spirited exchange with now Chief John Chrysomalis. You don't have to be an angel to cooperate. I'm just saying, and look, I understand these are serious charges. The board takes these very seriously, and I don't disagree. But if you look through the lens, if you look through his shoes on May 31st, it's just a mess. He does regret it. He has learned from it. Mr. Gay was certainly not non-cooperative. Mr. Persing, I'll let you make that decision. But again, I would argue this has just been a horrible year for businesses. And sometimes you hit the nail. And he's sorry for it. He can't go back in time and take those words away. All he can do is learn going forward. I thank you very much.
Okay. We're going to proceed then. On the basis of the materials contained in the charging documents, the discussions with counsel, the testimony received, I have to say a couple of things. So the evidence is in direct conflict about this female. The report indicates that they had to knock and obtain entrance to the facility, and once inside, she fell down the steps at their feet. The testimony from the licensee side is that she was never in the building, that she was on the outside steps, and that somebody gave her a glass of water. I might find that credible, but they also testified that they had an employee meeting that began around 6 o'clock. The licensee left at 8:30, and the meeting continued until 1 o'clock in the morning, where everybody was together drinking, obviously, for the whole time, to the point where someone, perhaps the assistant manager, was so inebriated that he thought it would be a good idea to scream at agents and inspectors of our agency and use foul language. This organization may have invested a great deal of money, but it's off to a very poor start, in my view. It doesn't have any history of violations because it was only open for 7 weeks, but it sure started with a bang on these three. So I understand your argument, Mr. Fogelman, and maybe there was not a purchase by any member of the general public of beverages on that evening. I'm not sure, frankly. whether that woman was in there buying beverages or not. So I will, consistent with what I ruled previously, not find a violation of 4.16 or 3.12. I'll definitely find a violation of Rule 3.02, and I'd impose a $500 fine and give them 30 days to pay. Commissioners?
Commissioner Guy? Mr. Ackers, is Commissioner Guy on?
Yes, Commissioner Guy is on. I unmuted him.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. In consideration of the testimony and evidence presented to the board in this case, I find for violation of Rule 4.16, illegal conduct, I would move to dismiss that one charge. But I do find violation of Rule 3.12, general welfare, and violation of Rule 3.02, cooperation, that took place on May 31st, 2020. I find those two in violation. I would concur with the fine of, I would give the fine of $100 for Rule 3.12, general welfare, and I concur with the fine of $500 for Rule 3.02. In this case, it took place on May 31st, 2020.
So based upon the evidence before us, testimony, I'm going to remain consistent with my findings from previous weeks and find a violation of Rule 4.16 on May 31st, 2020. I recognize that I'm in the minority amongst my colleagues. I find a violation of Rule 3.12, general welfare, and concur with Commissioner Guy's suggested imposition of a $100 fine. And I also concur with Chairman Matriciani and Commissioner Guy in finding a violation of Rule 3.02, cooperation on May 31st, 2020, and concur with the imposition of a $500 fine.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
I'd like to call exhibits for the record. Board Exhibit 1, violation report, Inspector Tudhope. Board Exhibit 2, 311, complaint filed. Exhibit 3, Governor's Executive Order dated 5/13/2020. Exhibit 4, Governor's Executive Order dated 5/27/2020. Exhibit number 5, employee list. 6, sales summary, and 7, written testimony, 2 letters.
Thank you. Mr. Ackers?
Mr. Fogelman, you will be receiving correspondence in the mail in regards to the board's decision and next steps for payment.
Thank you all for your patience today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thank you, everyone who participated today. I believe that concludes our docket, Mr. Ackers.
That does, Mr. Chairman. The board will be in recess until Thursday, October 15th, 2020 at 11 a.m.